Analyzing your data is daunting in the least, but if you make it a priority and an intention, it's going to do amazing things for your organization, okay? It's all linked in a circle. Your data will inform what your strategy should be for your organization. And then your strategy should inform your data so that you're collecting the right things. Does that make sense? So we're going to blast through a whole lot of stuff in 30 very fast minutes. Stay with me, and Jay and I'll be around this afternoon if you want to talk about anything further. So, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but will you be making these slides available to us
Sure
via email so we don't take as many notes?
Absolutely. I'll send it to Richard. Actually, I think I already did.
Oh, you did? If I can distribute that would be great. I'll distribute it to the attendees of the conference.
Perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely perfect. So I would submit to you this corny little slide that this is a journey you've started on with your data, with your management system. And you set sail with Chamber Nation, which we think is the best possible choice for you at this point. But the success at the end and the treasure at the end is only going to happen if you systematically apply yourself to doing several things. Collecting adequately, working with retention, engagement, we're going to talk a lot about because that's our cornerstone, opportunities that you can identify, trends, we're going to talk a little bit about roadblocks, and then ultimately home free with all the success of using your data to your advantage. Okay? So, on the collection front, how many of you are in your job less than 1 year? Okay. How many of you have more than 5 people on your staff? So most of you are 1 or 2 person shops, right? Okay. If you have a larger staff, then please make sure everybody is trained. If you are it, then absolutely make sure that you are trained. Everything that the guys have been talking about for these 2 days, find a place for it, carve out time, make a date with yourself, and absolutely apply yourself to the training, okay? You've got to know what you're looking for and what this thing is able to do in order to collect data that's going to help you and enhance your organization, all right? Accuracy, absolutely important. You know that. Don't get half-hearted. Make a list of the things that you want to collect from your members. If you are using a volunteer to do this, make sure the volunteer is onboarded to this process in a really full way so that they understand that you want to collect all of these things from your members so that you get it in there accurate. Because if you've got half-hearted, incomplete data, then you're not going to be able to use it as a tool like you need to. Okay? I don't think I have to elaborate on that. Periodic review is absolutely a must. Use that with your retention. Okay? Use that to touch your member again. So if you've got people 30 days out who are getting ready to renew or 60 days out, whatever your process is for touching them at various points during the year, use that to pull up their record, make sure that you've got accurate information. If anything changes, update it, change contacts, add contacts, that sort of thing. You're touching them again. You're making sure they understand they're important. You're engaging them in that process. And you're keeping your collection at its premium. You're absolutely going to have accurate data in your system. All right, retention. Retention is a quantitative collection, all right? It's a scientific collection. We've got numbers to attach to it. Engagement, on the other hand, Jay started that conversation with you yesterday, is more of a fuzzy thing. So I want to talk about both of them a little bit. Retention, you've got all kinds of different ways to collect your retention numbers. You can do last May to this May. So you can see what you retained last May versus what you retained this May. You can do year on year. You can do 5 years running. Whatever is valuable to you is what you want to do. I absolutely recommend that you do a first year retention. The first year is the critical year for your members. Okay? It's like a marriage or a new baby. It's a testing ground. You're proving yourself. And industry-wide, regardless of how that member is recruited, whether it's a campaign or they walked in the door or you recruited them actively yourself, the first year is the critical year. So track your first year retention so that you know what you're looking at as far as trends are concerned on that front. This is a great little spreadsheet that one of my clients uses. The top part is retention data, and you can see how she's tracked it year on year so that she can see what her annual retention is. She's got new sales underneath that. She's got them quarter on quarter so that she can compare that. She's got the revenue built in, which is also, you want to measure retention based on dollars and number of members, okay? So don't do one or the other, do both. And so she's got her. Now, if you are not using the billing component, I would assume that this is not in the system.
Right.
Do you even build it in? I mean, it doesn't even say how much they're paying.
Yes, it does say how much.
So you could still
if
collect.
they choose member plans, and it can still map out that way.
Okay.
But if the billing collection isn't being utilized, then it won't do the calculations.
Okay. All right. So absolutely calculate your retention with your dollars, and calculate what your average sale is, or what your average member amount is for the year. Why do you think that's important? Budgeting. Absolutely. If you're going to do budget projections on renewals and new member sales, you want to know what your averages are, because you want to be in the right ballpark, right, for what you can anticipate in sales, and be able to explain that to your board. So absolutely, this is a phenomenal budgeting tool, and all of that material can be pulled straight from your database. All right, so engagement. Retention is on that side. Engagement feels like it should be on this side, right? Do we have any tools for engagement? Any quantitative tools for engagement?
Attendance at events.
Good. Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, the advocacy piece, you know, it's a little bit harder to measure, but it is something you can tell them, implement, or
Right. I want to make sure that you walk away from this understanding that it's going to ultimately be more beneficial to you. It's not an either or. You need to do both. But this engagement process that I want to talk about for a few minutes is going to be invaluable to you in terms of identifying where your at-risk folks are. Okay? And you should have a quantitative measurement in place to track that. All right? So these are some of the things that you can actively track on the engagement front. Yes, how many events? But do they participate in volunteer activities? Are they on committees, on the board? Do they engage in social media? Do they open your emails, referrals? Are they sponsors? Do they take advantage of deals? Are they in your affinity programs? All right? All of those things. You can even take it another level further. You can decide you're going to track how many events they attended, how many volunteer hours they served, the number of committees, the number of dollars they invested during the course of a year. All right? You can go as deep with this as you want. You can go, to your point, another level deeper. Let's take advocacy, for example. If you want to segment your data in that way so that it helps you understand, okay, are people engaged in my advocacy program? All right? You can track that engagement specifically for that. Maybe it's a festival. What was my participation or my engagement with this festival in terms of revenue, sponsorships, attendance, volunteers, all of those things. So you can segment it out according to a specific area like that, or broadly overall. Some of you doing that already? I told you I was going to detonate. So this is what I want to recommend for you, okay? I want to recommend for you a member engagement ranking. I want you to think about, as a growth opportunity for you, tracking engagement in this way. This is a full-on spreadsheet here. Pick 5. I don't care. It's more than what you're doing now, right? Pick 5 things you want to track. Name them. Do a member profile. Attach a weighted value to what's important to you from an organization standpoint. Okay? Think about your strategy, your goals and objectives, your program of work for the year. What are you trying to accomplish? And what do you need active engagement in? All right? And you can weight those accordingly. You may want to weight a member of the board higher from a participation standpoint, then you rank being on a committee. You may, if the person is the chair of that committee, you may give them on a scale, on a ranking scale of 1 to 100, you may give them 5 points for being on a committee. You may give them 15 for being the chair. Does that make sense? You can establish that. You decide what the weight is, and you decide what you want to put on this, and then rank it by quarter. Look at their participation in quarter 1. What was their total ranking annually, overall? If you come up with a big fat 0 at the end of the day, what does that say to you?
They're in trouble.
Okay, good answer. It does not mean they're not engaged. It means they don't engage this way.
You're behind on your data entry.
That could quite possibly be the case. So click back to that first slide. You got to get the material in there before you can pull it to use to your advantage. It does not mean they're not engaged, right? People engage for all different reasons. You heard Jay say yesterday, 8 to 12% of your folks are going to participate in events, right? Flip side of that, on the other end of the scale, 8 to 12% are going to be members of your chamber because it's the right thing to do. All right? You still have enough of those baby boomer generation folks that do it because it's the right thing to do for their community. In the middle, you got 80%, huge segment of your membership that engage for all various different ways. All right? How are you going to get to the bottom of that? You got to talk to them. Yeah. You got to talk to them, and that's a whole other topic for a whole other time. But the bottom line is, this will tell you if that person is engaging from a participation standpoint. And if they are not, then they're at risk until you know what it is you can provide a solution for. Does that make sense? All right. Don't get overwhelmed with it. Just decide you're going to start somewhere. Like I said, pick 5 things you want to track. Maybe it's committees, maybe it's events, sponsorships, whatever it is, pick 5 things you want to track. Build that into your spreadsheet. Do the member profile when you're going through your retention. When there's, 3 months from renewing, pull that list 3 months out and go over those people. Build a profile. Start somewhere. Start with the next segment of people you're going to work. Okay? Don't look at the whole elephant. Take it one bite at a time. All right? I don't want you to be overwhelmed with this, but I do want you to consider doing it. Because then in terms of strategic planning for your year, for your next year, you can aggregate that. You can take that data and aggregate all of your member profiles and their levels of engagement, and you can determine what your engagement is for your entire organization. That can help you strategically decide, okay, should we be doing this? Should we be doing something else? This percentage of my membership is engaged from a participation standpoint. This percentage is not. What do I need to do for that other group? Does that make sense? All right, moving on down the road, we got opportunity. Your data can provide you so many opportunities for understanding how you can grow. All right? If you segregate your membership by geography, what could that do? You saw a pie chart with your members broken down by zip code. They can do that, right, Richard? Yeah.
You might show you're focusing on only a certain area, whereas in a county, we sometimes focus on where we're located,
Right.
but we have 2 other towns to deal with, and that's a bad thing.
Right. So in a snapshot, it can tell you, oops, I'm not really working this area. Maybe I need to do that. All right? So from a strategic planning standpoint, that might be your target, and that might be a conversation you have with your board. We've got a growth opportunity right there in that little piece of the pie. What can we do to make that happen? Same thing with industry. You've got a big pie chart. You segregated it by industry, segmented it by industry. Let's just pull agriculture out of the hat. Let's say you've got this tiny little sliver on your pie chart that's agriculture. Is that underrepresented for your community? Only you can say that. But when you see that, and you've got nothing but farmers and farming implement companies and anything ancillary built around the farming industry, and your pie chart only has one little 5% sliver in it that's devoted to membership in that segment, there's your opportunity for growth. Does that make sense to everyone? Advocacy, same story. Volunteers, tracking your volunteers that way, pulling those up. If you're putting that data into your system, pulling that up, saying, okay, we're short volunteers, we need to build in this area. So the same story there. Investment. If you have multi-levels of investment, pulling your membership by investment level, you can determine whether there's a group of folks that need to be looked at for an increase to the next level of membership, okay? Sponsors, risk, we talked about. My favorite, sacred cows. Who's got one? Who's got 2 or 3? You have an event you want to get rid of? Or you think you should get rid of? If you actively use your data here and you do a value report for your board that says volunteer hours, that says event attendance, that says dollars raised, both by ticket sales and by sponsorships, that has all of that in it, and you look at it and it is not worth your time, then that's your opportunity to march that cow right on out the door. Okay? But this is only going to happen if you're really looking at your numbers. Trends. This is awesome, awesome, awesome in the opportunity category as well. Take a look at this pie chart, and I know it's hard to read in the back of the room. Somebody start at this one and add those percentages up for me all the way around. 12, 20, 14, 17, 17, 2. No, not 2, 17. The big
98,
chunks.
100.
From here to here.
Yep.
80. You know what? Industry standard. 80% of your membership are small business. Okay? Nobody's unique in that front. And I would venture to say some of you folks that we talked to last night that have 200 members, you probably, this is probably all you have. I would guess you're probably 95%. Yeah? Small business? Yes, sir.
Are you seeing trend fluctuation with the small business? You said that's the norm.
Mhm.
Are we seeing a decrease or an increase in the number of small businesses represented?
No, that's pretty standard. That's remained consistent because the bulk of our funding probably comes here, but this is the growth. And that says a lot for you in terms of what you offer in programming, what you do for business expansion and retention on the economic development front, for all of those kinds of things. That has a really, really strong message. Now, I'm going to flip it around and say, if you've got this 50 to 500, you've got this chamber has 18% of their membership have greater than 50 employees. There is a training opportunity for you. Maybe you want to offer an employee development plan for people with more than 50 employees. You know, that would be something where you could come out looking like a rock star if you isolated some programming just for those members. So some incredible things to identify from your what did I just, this slide I just had up, from your employee numbers. We talked about categories. You can definitely learn something from that, just as I mentioned earlier. Years in business. What could I gather from this segment, these two segments of that pie chart? Anybody?
Yeah.
For that community, startups are not a really huge thing at this point. So that might be an opportunity for that chamber to do an entrepreneur workshop, to offer something that would encourage startup businesses, all right? To look at an incubator program, to do something innovative on the front of new startup businesses, because clearly they've got a community with really long-standing established businesses. It also could be an opportunity for you, from a growing your program of work standpoint, to tap into those 14% and say, what are the struggles of a business that's younger than 5 years? What do you see that would help your Chamber of Commerce understand what the struggles are in this current age, in this current economy for startup businesses in their first 5 years? So some great opportunities there. Years as a member. This is what I told you earlier. 25% of this chamber membership is in that first year. That is a place that you absolutely need to be focused on engaging them and creating that culture for them. But what could you do here? It's a whole other thing in the engagement front. What could you do in that little slice up there?
Recognize those.
Yes, indeedy. Reward is a great engagement tool, right? Capture a testimonial. Why in the heck has that person been a member for 50 years? What could they say to your community about being a member of your chamber for 50 years or more? Right? That's an incredible opportunity. Yes?
How come we have 73.5% at more than 50? The whole thing adds up to how much more than 100.
Yeah.
This is not my slide. I just borrowed it.
It's 73 members, which equals
73
5%.
members and 5%. Yeah.
It's a comma, not a
That's
decimal.
comma.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it. Okay. See the difference here.
I know, it's hard. It's hard to read, and I borrowed these slides from clients. So.
The numbers person here.
Are you crunching them over there? All right, so what's going to happen? We just looked at all these things. We know they're tools. We know they would be valuable. We know they would help us strategize and be better at what we do. But what happens? We're one person in the shop. We can't do what we got to do today because we got a golf tournament tomorrow and we got to schlep beer out to the golf course or whatever, or drink beer, whatever. The real world of chamber work is something that nobody else understands, and you're the only one who does it in your community. And so this is, hats off to you for taking the time to do this and for being committed to understand this. And where I was talking to the guys at the back, that we learn from each other, all right? So you should also depend on one another, for these ideas. So time is always going to be, you're not the Lone Ranger on that front. So I will go back to what I said earlier. Make a date for data analysis. Put it in your calendar. Every Wednesday at 9 o'clock for 1 hour, for 2 hours, I'm going to shut my door and put conference on the outside of it. I'm going to turn the phone off, and I'm going to analyze my data. You got to be intent about it. You've got to apply yourself to it, and you got to start somewhere, okay? So I'm going to encourage you to do that, ask you to do that. If you have other people on your staff, take a look at these slides and see what you could delegate and what one person's going to handle and what the other person. If you have a membership professional on your staff, then you can easily do all that tracking on the retention and the member engagement profiles, to that person. You can segment this yourself if you're a one-person show, and you can say, at this particular time, I'm going to analyze membership data from a retention and a sales standpoint and all that. At this point, I'm going to look at the engagement rankings. So you can segment it that way. I'm just asking you to not go away from here going, there is no way in heck I'm ever going to have the time to do that. Because if you have invested in this program, you believe that it's important to your organization. All right? So it's almost a shame on you if you don't take it and then do what it allows you to do to make you better. I know that's Richard's philosophy. He built this thing so that you could be the best chambers you could possibly be. He's given you all the tools to do that. So you just have to get in there and dig. Jay said this yesterday. This is his exact slide. It starts with you. All right? And you can take a look at this work. You can take a look at how analyzing your data will make you better. And you can talk to your board about it. You can make assignments there if you have board members that you believe can help you with this process. Okay? So it starts with you. Again, it's got to start somewhere. It starts with you. But this is what I want you to do. I'm going to put on my... Anybody done Institute? Anybody considered Institute? Awesome. Jay and I are like champions of Institute. I graduated the program in 2009, served as a class advisor on the Board of Regents, and I joined the faculty this summer. And Jay's on the faculty at Midwest. So we are solidly devoted to Institute. If you want to consider that, you can talk to us offline, and we'd be happy to do that for you. But this is my Institute hat. Everything you've done in these 2 days, I'm going to ask you right now, before you leave this day, to on a piece of paper write 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I want you to name 5 things that you were absolutely committed to doing in the next 2 weeks, and then I want you to shut your notes and put them away when you get home. Does that make sense? Because if you'll do that for yourself, if you will funnel it down and narrow it down to things that pop to the top of your mind that you absolutely needed to do, you will get that done. If you go home and open up all these notes of everything we've done in these 2 days, you will be so overwhelmed by it that you won't accomplish anything. Okay? So that's my little aside for you. But the bottom line is, cramming that all in 30 minutes is that you've done this, you've invested in it, it's there for you. Collect it accurately. Please, please, please collect it accurately. Be systematic and deliberate about collecting it, and then use it to your advantage. Got it? Questions?
Annette, I have a question.
Okay.
When you tell a chamber exec to go in, close the door, and review their data, where do they start normally to get the data?
In your system.
I mean, do they have to go to different reports and
Yeah.
things and?
You're going to have to go back to what I said here. You got to know what you're going to track, what is most important to you. You're going to get these slides. So pick 5 things out of this that you really think would be valuable to you. Don't try to do it all, because you can't. There's absolutely no way. I've walked in your shoes. I was a chamber exec. I know how this goes. So, and that's why I say to you, if you go home and try to think about doing it all, it's not going to happen. You're going to lose the advantage because you won't do any of it. So pick retention.
Yeah.
Pick that spreadsheet on retention if you're not doing that already, and start plotting that out for yourself. Personally, I would pick the engagement piece, and I would look at who I have renewed. Who's a calendar year renewal? Anybody? So most everybody's anniversary date. All right. So if you've got anniversary date renewals, it's much easier. So I am today at what's today's date? October 22nd. All right. So I'm going to pull up November, December. I'm going to pull up my January renewals. This is what I would do. I'm going to pull up my January renewals, and I'm going to look at all of this. Now, I've never done this before. I'm putting myself in your shoes. I've never done this before, and I've got to start somewhere. Okay? So what I'm going to do is look at those. If I've got 40 people that renew in January, that's my goal right there. I'm going to look at those 40, and I'm going to start there. I'm going to look for accuracy in the records. I'm going to make sure that they're complete. You want to, is their profile complete? Do they have their business website on there? Are they search engine optimized?
Okay.
All of that. You want to look at that and then use that, again, as an opportunity to reach out to them. If you have 10 people out of that 40 that haven't engaged in any of these ways, assign an ambassador to them, assign a board member to them, assign somebody to go out and walk in the door, and just like Jay said yesterday, don't walk in the door and say, you know what, you are not using your chamber membership. Ask them how it's going. Don't go in asking for something. Go in with the purpose and intent of engaging with them, okay? Walk in the door, ask them how it's going, and let's take a look. Have them pull up their chamber page. And show them a couple of things. You know, there are ways to make that happen.
Change the name from ambassador to chamber whip.
Crack the whip. Yeah, we don't want to do that. But yeah, so take those 40 and use that as your starting point. All right? And then look at what you're missing, what you're not actively collecting that you really need to be moving forward. Okay? And just ask, does that answer your question, kind of, Richard?
It does, very
Good.
much.
Good.
And you know, one thing I might want to bring up too is that I'm being provided with some pretty deep intelligence for our engineering department, and the membership 180 enhanced edition. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be doing a lot of consulting on the engagement ranking, and they're having us establish rules and terminology and automation to be able to start to do a lot of these things in a very much an automated kind of way. But it's not just generic. You can't just go into every system and say, by the way, here's your engagement ranking system, good luck, goodbye. When we look at those types of things and we realize that if we try to apply the same principles and logic to every customer, that it just doesn't work. Every community's got its own personality. So their job is going to be dialing it in. But the point is, when she was going through this, I realized that, wow, you know, if you could just really get to that kind of data, that would be pretty phenomenal. So that's this stuff gets complicated, but that's what they're going to be able to help do.
Yeah.
So anyway,
We really want you to actively track your engagement, all right? Because retention is a great number, and it does tell a story for you. But engagement is about people. We are connecting with people, not just businesses on a page, okay? So that relationship piece of is where the engagement factor comes in. And you're creating a culture there that you'll become known for, you know? And that tracking of it, making it quantifiable and collectible, and giving them a ranking based on that is going to answer questions for you in terms of, is that member at risk, or do I need to do a little bit of legwork on that one?
I think the thing about, like, our focus has been grow membership, you know, and we say retention, which is engagement, obviously, but closing that bucket at the bottom to help stop the drain of the chamber. And Jim has done a lot of analysis on this and found out that bottom of that bucket is a really big problem for a lot of chambers.
Yep.
And we don't focus on that bottom so much. We're focused more on the top. So I'm thinking that you're going to be more focused on the bottom, and that would probably help a lot.
We would say to you unequivocally, sales is not the important piece. We said it to our people yesterday afternoon. If you have satisfied customers, and the only way you're going to know that is if you're creating a culture of engagement and you're connecting with them. If you have satisfied customers who become raving fans, they're going to refer for you. They're going to tell their friends, you know, my chamber membership is so helpful to me. You really need to be a member too. You don't have to beat the street for sales. You have to make sure you're providing good customer service. Make sense? Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna throw this out here very general, maybe everybody answers for something, I don't know. But those first year people that we talk about sometimes they roll over and they leave so quickly. What are some great suggestions beyond just, hey, how are you doing, to engage with them that we might utilize back home? Actual proactive things.
Your first year, if you don't have a retention plan, a touch plan, whatever you call it, then that needs to be a number one priority for you when you get home. You need to have actionable items attached to reaching out to these people. The first year particularly, okay? And you need to walk in the door to them. And I know I just heard you guys talking. We don't have time to do that. I get that. So everybody's probably doing the same. You're using you send out the welcome letter so I think that probably the best thing I can say to you is you need diversity in how you approach these people. Do not let them get nothing but emails and never get a phone call. Do not let them only hear from you and never hear from somebody else on staff, from a board member. So you need to provide diversity in those touches. That way they see that they're joining a community and they're not just looking to Astra as their only connection to this organization. Your messaging, as Jay mentioned yesterday, that's a huge part of it too. But you need to walk in the door, and when you walk in the door, do exactly what he said yesterday. Don't go in there and do chamber show and tell. That is absolutely uninteresting to them. Now, if you've got a networker on your hands, then they're going to be all about finding out about business after hours and all of those opportunities. They might want to hear about ambassadors. But the vast majority, 80% of the people don't care about that. They care about their business.
Yeah.
That's what they care about. They don't care about you. They're looking to you for solutions, and you have to be in the solution business. And the only way you do that is by listening to them. It's by walking in the door and saying, tell me about your business. I want to know about you. And then shut up and listen to them. Right? If you do that, if you can lay the groundwork for that first year member that way, and then you can check on, if you do make that one visit, in 2 months, pick up the phone and call them and say, how's it going? I haven't heard from you. You know, I haven't seen you at an event, but I want to make sure you're doing okay and hear what's going on with your business. You gotta be deliberate about it. Yeah. There's no easy way. There is no easy answer for this. I mean, actually the answer is easy. There's no easy way to say, you gotta have this much time to do this. You just have to make it. Yep. And we would absolutely say to you, that customer service piece and doing that is ultimately going to translate into sales for you, and it will stop the bottom from leaking.